Welcome to this lecture titled Research Paradigms. In this lecture, we will discuss what a research paradigm is and provide a few typical research paradigms within the field of information systems. A research paradigm encompasses the shared beliefs and assumptions within a research community regarding ontological, epistemological, and methodological issues. This paradigm forms a mental model that shapes how community members view their field of study. It addresses ontological questions about the nature of reality, the existence of entities, and their interactions. It also tackles epistemological questions about how people can know and acquire knowledge about the world. Lastly, it addresses methodological questions about valid ways to investigate reality and confirm the validity of the generated knowledge. In brief, ontology inquires, what exists in the world? Epistemology asks, what can we know about the world and how do we obtain that knowledge? Methodology considers, which procedures can be used to obtain knowledge? The two most established research paradigms in information systems are positivism and interpretivism. This lecture introduces these paradigms, along with critical realism and critical theory, and discusses their relationship to design science. However, before we begin talking about those, we will investigate how a research paradigm is used in research in a broader sense. Research paradigms, research strategies, and research methods are interconnected, with each influencing or being applied by the others. As illustrated in the figure, a research paradigm shapes a research strategy, which might include approaches such as experiments, surveys, case studies, or action research. Conversely, a research method encompasses various elements, such as data collection methods, including questionnaires, interviews, observations, or documents. Furthermore, data analysis methods may be qualitative or quantitative and instantiated as, for example, content analysis, discourse analysis, or statistical methods. This overarching research diagram is valuable to consider when building your own research projects and can serve as a guide for conceptualizing them. The diagram provides structural guidance on how the research paradigm, research strategy, and research method align with each other, ensuring a coherent and systematic approach to your research. Positivism, introduced by 19th century sociologist and philosopher Auguste Comte, aimed to establish sociology as a science by applying natural science principles to social phenomena. Comte's positivism was a response to theological and metaphysical views that relied on authority, divine revelation, and tradition for knowledge. In contrast, positivism only accepts knowledge based on sensory experience and positive verification. Ontologically, positivism assumes that reality exists independently of human actions and experiences. Like natural science, social science should aim to identify regularities in the world and explain them through cause and effect relationships. These explanations should be general and not influenced by context, time, place, or people. Epistemologically, positivism asserts that objective knowledge about the social world is attainable only through observation and experimentation. Researchers should be objective and act as neutral observers, maintaining distance from the subjects to avoid bias. Methodologically, positivist researchers strive for objective and value-free investigations, using large quantitative studies, including interviews and questionnaires, to collect data. Experiments are also highly valued for providing objective knowledge. While positivism may seem natural and commonsensical, interpretivists argue that it is limited. They claim that positivism, suitable for natural science, fails to capture essential aspects of the social world, particularly the subjective construction of social phenomena. Interpretivism emerged in the early 20th century as a response to positivism. One of its early proponents, German sociologist Max Weber, argued that the social world and social actions can only be understood by grasping the subjective meanings and purposes individuals attach to their actions. Ontologically, interpretivism posits that the social world is not an independent reality, but is constructed by people through their actions and the meanings they assign to them. For example, a housing contract is created through social interactions between individuals and other entities like a government. The meaning of the contract is determined by those involved and can change over time. Disagreements about its meaning can even lead to court trials, where a third party decides on the interpretation. This shows that social phenomena are not part of a stable, objective reality, but are continuously shaped by human actions and interpretations. Social phenomena result from human interactions and experiences, influencing memberships in clubs, employment contracts, marriages, money, debts, holidays, and religions. These phenomena are created by people, and their meanings depend on the actions, intentions, and understandings of those involved. Therefore, social reality is more fluid and subjective than physical reality. Epistemologically, this means that studying people as objects only provides superficial knowledge. Researchers should view people as subjects who actively create the social world. To deeply understand social phenomena, researchers need to participate in the phenomenon with the people who create it, rather than being detached observers. This contrasts with the positivist ideal of separating researchers from their study objects, which interpretivists argue is counterproductive. Methodologically, interpretivist researchers prefer case studies, action research, and ethnography. These strategies allow researchers to empathize with and understand social phenomena by getting close to the participants. However, this approach is criticized for producing subjective results that depend on the researcher's skills and experiences. Two different researchers might arrive at different conclusions. To address this, interpretivist researchers should acknowledge their subjectivity and discuss how it might affect their results' validity. While the differences between positivism and interpretivism may seem significant, some argue that many perceived differences, especially ontological ones, are superficial. Additionally, some positions attributed to positivists are outdated. Modern positivists acknowledge that parts of reality, including many research subjects and information systems, are socially constructed. Historically, it was sometimes assumed that complex social phenomena like childhood, gender, and honor were unchanging and independent of culture and time. However, this is clearly not the case, as evidenced by the differing gender stereotypes in today's Scandinavia compared to 19th century Prussia. Researchers who assumed social phenomena were culturally independent often impose their own views on other cultures, which actually had different perspectives. Epistemologically, interpretivists understand and appreciate the positivist goal of objectivity, but argue that true understanding of social phenomena requires engaging closely with people to grasp their views and interpretations. This compromises objectivity, but is seen as worthwhile for the insights gained. Positivists, however, might argue that interpretivist results are too subjective, and that well-designed experiments can provide deep knowledge about social phenomena. Both positivists and interpretivists acknowledge that knowledge is socially constructed and influenced by the researcher's culture, experience, and history. This idea is a cornerstone of Kuhn's theory of scientific development. Positivists typically prefer research strategies like experiments, surveys, and field studies, while interpretivists focus on case studies, action research, and ethnography. Positivist methods provide reliable but shallow knowledge, whereas interpretivist methods offer deep but potentially unreliable knowledge. Combining these strategies can overcome their respective weaknesses. Interpretivist methods can generate hypotheses, while positivist methods can verify them. In design science, both paradigms can be applied, often within the same project. Researchers might adopt an interpretivist approach during problem explication and requirements definition to deeply understand stakeholder needs. For evaluation, they might use positivist methods, such as surveys and experiments, to achieve objective results. Interpretivist methods can also be useful for understanding subjective user experiences. Thus, design science projects can benefit from both positivist and interpretivist strategies and methods, depending on the project's goals and context. Critical realism offers an alternative to both positivism and interpretivism. Unlike some positivist views, Critical realism argues that science is not just about formulating laws based on observable events. It goes beyond what can be seen, postulating the structures, entities, and mechanisms that cause observable phenomena. For example, biology explains heredity through genes and alleles, not just by recording traits. Thus, science uses these entities and mechanisms to explain and sometimes predict observable phenomena. However, these entities and mechanisms do not completely determine outcomes, as other factors may influence them. For instance, a person with genes for tallness might not be tall due to environmental factors. Critical realism introduces 3 layers to explain the relationships between causal mechanisms and observable events. The real domain includes underlying structures, entities, and mechanisms, as well as the objects and events they cause. The actual domain consists of events and behaviors caused by structures, entities, and mechanisms in the real domain, which can be experienced. The empirical domain consists of events that have been observed by someone. While some positivists claim that only perceivable entities exist, critical realism asserts that all entities with causal power exist, regardless of whether they can be perceived. The preferred methodological approach in critical realism is retroduction, similar to abductive reasoning. This reasoning starts from an observation and moves to a hypothesis that explains it. For example, if the pavement is wet, a possible explanation is that it rained. However, there may be other explanations, such as the pavement being cleaned with water. In critical realism, retroduction starts with an unexplained phenomenon in the empirical domain and proposes a structure or mechanism in the real domain to explain it. Since multiple mechanisms can explain the same observations, retroduction needs to be complemented with further research to evaluate alternatives. Critical realism's philosophy and methodology are valuable for design science research, especially for evaluation. While a positivist approach may focus on whether an artifact works by inspecting outcomes, critical realism emphasizes studying the mechanisms that cause these outcomes. This includes understanding the structure of the artifact, the behaviors it produces, and the environment in which it operates. Researchers should investigate why and how an artifact works in its environment, considering technological, psychological, and social factors. Critical realism encourages evaluations that provide detailed descriptions of phenomena in both the empirical and real domains. The goal of most social sciences is to explain and understand social and cultural phenomena. In contrast, critical theories also aim to achieve human emancipation. Within critical theory, research should liberate human beings from the circumstances that enslave them. Critical theories not only examine how things are and why, but also how they might be or should be. They question hidden assumptions and purposes in academic theories, political ideologies, and cultural practices. By exposing these assumptions, critical theories can make people aware of the oppressive effects of established theories, ideologies, and practices, which is the first step towards change. Critical theories aim to reduce domination and increase freedom in various contexts, including studies on race, gender, ethnicity, and identity. For example, in analyzing gender within a tradition or practice, a critical theory may ask about the equal status of women, whether they are demeaned or idealized, and whether they are ignored or patronized. These questions help to understand if and how women are subordinated. 2 common forms of domination in modern society, according to critical theories, are alienation and reification. Alienation refers to the psychological effects of exploitation and division of labor, where individuals feel disconnected from their work and fellow workers. Reification involves transforming social relationships into impersonal ones based on commodities and market values. Critical theories and design science both believe that merely describing and explaining the world is not enough. It also needs to be changed. Critical theories aim to raise awareness of domination and subordination to spur action, while design science seeks to create new artifacts to bring about change. However, their goals differ. Critical theories aim to liberate people from oppressive structures, while design science focuses on meeting stakeholder needs and wants. These differing goals can sometimes lead to conflicts. For instance, In a design science project to introduce a new ERP system in a company, management might aim to improve efficiency by eliminating routine work. However, a critical theorist might argue that the real motive is to better monitor and control employees, contributing to their alienation and reducing their autonomy. This example shows that design science researchers need to consider multiple stakeholder perspectives and use various research methods to gain a comprehensive and unbiased understanding. Design science is still young, and some might say immature. To better characterize it, Baskerville outlines what design science is not. Design science is not new. It has roots in various disciplines such as engineering, architecture, and computer science. These fields have long traditions of creating artifacts to address practical problems. What sets design science apart is its focus on the rigorous and systematic study of these artifacts, not just their creation. Design science is not design. The purposes of design and design science differ regarding generalizability and knowledge contribution. Design science is not a research strategy. Different research strategies can be used in design science projects. Design science is not action research. Design science always involves creating or positioning an artifact, which is not a requirement in action research. Design science is not a research paradigm. A design science project can benefit from both positivist and interpretivist approaches, as well as from critical realism and critical theory. So, what is design science? Design science is a scientific study and creation of artifacts as they are developed and used by people with the goal of solving practical problems. It is an approach to investigating artifacts, taking a problem-solving stance. It starts from problems experienced by people in practices and attempts to solve them by creating, positioning, and repurposing artifacts that function as solutions. This process includes empirical studies, particularly for problem explication and evaluation. Thus, by building and studying artifacts, design science creates knowledge. In this lecture, we discuss various research paradigms. A research paradigm is a set of commonly held beliefs and assumptions within a research community regarding ontological, epistemological, and methodological concerns. Ontological questions. These pertain to the nature of reality, what entities exist, and how these entities are related and interact with each other. Epistemological questions. These focus on the ways in which people can know about reality, in other words, how they can gain knowledge about the world. Methodological questions. These concern legitimate ways of investigating reality and how to confirm that the knowledge generated is valid. Two well-established research paradigms are positivism and interpretivism. Positivism assumes that reality exists independently of human actions and experiences, claims that objective knowledge about the social world is obtainable, but only through observation and experimentation, prefers experiments and surveys as research strategies. Interpretivism assumes that the social world is not an independent entity out there, but is constructed by people who carry out social actions and give meanings to them. Claims that researchers can only achieve a deep understanding of a social phenomenon by actively participating in that phenomenon together with the people who create it. Prefers case studies, action research, and ethnography as research strategies. Other notable research paradigms include critical realism, assumes that science goes beyond the observable by postulating structures, entities, and causal mechanisms that are not observable, but generate events and behaviors that can be observed. Prefers a methodological approach of retroduction, which is a kind of reasoning that starts from some unexplained phenomenon and then proposes different structures or mechanisms that can explain the phenomenon. Critical theory claims that research should not only explain and understand social and cultural phenomena, but also strive for human emancipation. Claims that hidden assumptions and purposes in academic theories, as well as in political ideologies and cultural practices, should be exposed, thereby making people aware of their oppressive effects. This lecture is based on the contents from the book An Introduction to Design Science by Johannesson and Purgens. For more in-depth reading, You can read and study Chapter 12 Research Paradigms.